Snautra aure mazda Hashem bahu vahishtemasti ushtaste ushtahamaya tashai vahishtai yashe Maname ahura mazda. To think a good thought, to speak a good word, to do a good deed is righteousness. Happiness comes to those who live with the consciousness of righteousness. And with that sentiment, ladies and gentlemen, this is Meher Amal Saad, and welcome to Bahumata, a program designed to build oneness with the consciousness of righteousness in humanity. The goal is not to grow the plant, but to plant the seed for each one of us to blossom with our own love, light, grace, joy, and peace. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this very special journey to enlightenment. And as you do, please join me in giving a warm Zartushti welcome to our very own Zartushti neuroscientist from United Kingdom, Dr. Karishma Koka.
Thank you very much, Baba Meher. As always, a positive. Today we didn't have the video, so we could see Baba Meher in his completely positive form, which I'm very grateful for. Welcome to each one of you to this special episode of Bahumata. Bahumata means with good thoughts. Ba, with, hu, good, mata, thoughts, that which emanates the mind. And we aim to send out powerful, positive, united vibrations of peace and love to all. Each of our speakers is an eminent person in their own right, both in the world and in the Zartushti community, and we have requested them to focus on the concepts and words and lines together with the meaning from the prayers and the guiding theme, with references and their own experiences and actions for our living our life. In no way is Bahumata responsible for people's own personal viewpoints, which they will share with their own good mind. And in the question and answer session, we request you to put your questions to them with your good mind. The 4 principles of Bahumata is to conserve and share the knowledge in the prayers, the principles and the practice of the Zarathushtri Daina. To honor our priests, whom we call Ervat Sahibs or Mabed Sahibs, and the knowledgeable elders, for it is in their mind that the Daina is conserved. Importantly, it's important to bridge the communication between the elders and the youth, so that empowerment can be based upon knowledge and good leadership, as Asho Zarathustra, the great prophet, has guided us in his Gathas. And together, this is important in the Gathas, together we build good thoughts and fellowship for world peace. Today's focused theme, as given by Baba Meher, who creates all our themes, is free will a fragment of imagination or a segment for determination? And we have with us Ervat Sahib Freddy Gonda, Ervat Sahib Rayoman Poch Khanawala, Anahita Driver, and Persis Driver. We'd now like to request Ervat Sahib Freddy Gonda, a senior priest, to give us a hum bandagi for peace and good health for all. Ervat Sahib, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Karishma. Before I can start the hum bandagi, I will definitely bow to Haura Mazda to give us clarity, calmness, and confidence to speak the truth and do my best. Yatha huvedyo adharatu shashauchi dachau vangehush dastau maningo shothananam angehush mazdai shatrin chai ahurai ayim dregopyo daradvastare yatha huvedyo Atharatush Ashauchi Dachao Vangehush Dazdao Maningo Shautanana Angehush Mazdai Shatrim Chai Ahurai Aim Rigopio Dared Vastare Ashim Vahu Vahishte Masti Ushtasti Ushtamai Yadashai Vahistayashe. He has done Panabhav Tejusha. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvat Sahib Freddy Gonda.
Thank you.
Today we mark a very, very special, a noble soul, Arvat Sahib Dr. John Bugli, who retired as a distinguished research fellow of the White Iris Pharmaceutical Research Laboratory and Institution. Most people may know this, but he was also the most devoted husband and father. He truly represented the concept, as my mummy explained to me today, that Zarathustra Sahib guided one to be strong, but not show one's strength, but to be the strength for others. And Arvat Sahib, Dr. John Bugli, truly embodied this spirit. At the age of 94, Arvat Sahib John Bugli made time in his very busy schedule to be our esteemed Bahumata featured speaker. He used to continue to write articles and research right to the very end. And he was a founding member and president of the Zoroastrian Association of Quebec and the editor of Gavashni, a North American Zartushti publication, for 16 years. He published 6 books, lectured extensively on various aspects of the Zoroastrian religion in North America and abroad, and constantly reminded us that Asha, as Arvat Sahib Freddy Gonda alluded to today, is the founding principle upon which we can base our lives. Let us all take a moment to give gratitude to a person who really embodied the spirit of the Zarathushti Daina. Thank you all. Our featured senior Mabed Sahib today is Arvat Freddy Gonda. He's a dedicated Zarathushti Mabed, speaker, and community servant, committed to preserving and sharing the prayers, teachings, and traditions of the Zarathushti faith. He has served the community through prayer guidance, religious teachings, and the training of would-be Navars, the youngest level of becoming a Mabed, helping inspire and support the next generation in their spiritual journey. He's especially appreciated for his recent Navjot prayer project. This is really important, which offers clear and authentic prayer recordings to help children, parents, and community members learn proper pronunciation and reverence. His service to the Dare Meher and his sincere efforts in nurturing religious understanding have been deeply valued by many in the community. Through humility, devotion, and active engagement, Arvat Sahib Freddy continues to encourage both youth and adults to remain connected to the Zartushti values and daily prayers. Thank you, Arvat Sahib Gonda, and thank you for focusing your thoughts on the theme, Is Free Will a Fragment of Imagination or a Segment for Determination? Over to you.
Thank you. Allowed.
Try now again.
Yes, got it. Can you see my screen? Is it okay?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. And of course, at the various locations, it is good evening, good afternoon, at the various times. So thank you, Dr. Karishma, for giving the good introduction to me. And of course, let me just tell you that this is my first time giving the presentation on this particular podium. Of course, in office, I've given a lot of presentation, but this is like a religious part of it. And I'm really thank you to Meher Amal Sad and Dr. Karishma for giving me this opportunity. So coming to the point that my name is Arvid Freddy Gonda, and I'm really very grateful to be part of this Global Bahumat Prayer Leadership and Entrepreneurship webinar. First, I would like to humbly say that I'm not a religious scholar, but at the kind request of Dr. Karishma Koka and Mr. Meher Amal Sir, I'm trying my best to participate in this webinar and share my simple thoughts on today's subject. As you all are aware that today's topic is free will a fragment of imagination or is it a segment for determination? This is a very meaningful subject because every day we make choices in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions. And the Zoroastrian faith, our choices are not meaningless. They have spiritual value and moral responsibility. Through this presentation, I will try to reflect on free will with the guidance of Yasna 30.2 and Yasna 33.11 and connect these teachings with our daily life, our community responsibilities, and our personal spiritual growth. So let me come to this particular topic. Is free will a fragment of imagination or a segment for determination? Again, I'm going to refer this both the Yasna's para, that is 30.2 and 33.11. The question before us is very deep. Is free will only imagination, or is it real power given to us for righteous determination? Sometimes people may feel that everything in life is already decided by circumstances, pressure, habit, society, or destiny. But the Gathas of Zarathustra teaches us something very powerful. They teach us that human beings are not helpless. We are asked to listen, think, reflect, and then choose. That means our choices matter. In Yasna 30.2, Zarathustra asks us to listen with our ears, reflect with clear mind, and then choose our path. So free will is not just a theory, it is a part of our spiritual responsibility. Now, let me recite this Yasna 30.2, and then I will give you the clear, deep meaning on this particular one. Yasna 30.2 states that Srauta Geushaish Vahishta Avainata Socha Manangaha Ivarana Vichithiai Nerem Kwaikyatanuye Paramaza Yongaho Amaine Sazdiai Bondanto Paiti. Now, if we just listen to this very carefully, this verse begins with the idea of listening carefully. Before we choose, we must first listen. We must listen not only with our ears, but also with our mind and consciousness. Zarathustra teaches that each person must reflect and choose for himself or herself. We cannot simply blame society, family, habit, or fear for every decision we make. The message of Yasna 30.2 is very clear. First listen, then reflect with good mind, and then make a responsible choice. This shows that free will is a sacred responsibility. Ahura Mazda has given us the ability to think, understand, and choose between the path of truth and path of falsehood. According to my simple understanding of this particular Yasna 30.2, is that Zarathustra here is asking to us to listen, reflect, and then choose. faith is not meant to be blind or mechanical. It is not only about following rituals without understanding. It is about using Vahumana, the good mind, to understand what is right. When we use the good mind, we do not act of anger, ego, fear, or pressure. We act with clarity and responsibility. Again, Yasna 30.2 reminds us that every person has a role in choosing the path of Asha, the path of truth, righteousness, order, and goodness. So, free will is not simply doing what we want or whatever we want. Free will becomes meaningful when we use it to choose what is right. Now, coming to the Yasna 33.11, I will again recite this particular in what exactly the Yasna 33.11 has been stated by Zarathustra. Yesevishto auro mazdavascha armatischa ashincha fradat gaitam manascha vo shatrimcha srauta moi merizdeta moi adai kaya chita paiti. So, the slide which I have just now recited, it says that again in this verse is, it explains that free will should never become ego will. It should not mean that I only do what I like or what benefits me personally. Before making important choices, we seek the guidance of Ahura Mazda. We ask for the help of Vahumana, the good mind, Asha, the truth and righteousness, Armiti, devotion and humility, and Shatrata, that is noble strength and spiritual power. Again, this Yasna 33.11 reminds us that freedom must be guided by wisdom. It is our free will which is guided by humility, truth, wisdom, and strength. Then our choices become spiritually meaningful. So the prayer before choice, coming to this particular slide, is that we see the inner discipline before making a choice. It is clearly on the slides, which is giving you Bowman, Vow, Asha, Armaiti, and Shatra. But let me just explain to you very clearly in a simple layman language that when we are confused, disturbed, angry, or under pressure, our decision may not always be right. That is why we need spiritual guidance. Bahumana helps us think rightly. Asha keeps us connected to truth and righteousness. Armaiti keeps us humble and devoted. Shatra gives us the strength to act nobly. These are not religious words, they are practically qualities for our day-to-day lives. If we use our free will without wisdom, it can become selfish. But if we use our free will with good mind, asha, humility, and strength, then it becomes a path towards righteousness. Why free will matters? Without a choice, praise, and accountability, it loses meaning. If human being had no real ability to choose, then praise, blame, repentance, forgiveness, and accountability would not make any sense. In the Zoroastrian view, we are not simply controlled by fate. We are given the ability to move towards Asha, the path of truth and righteousness, or towards Druj, the path of falsehood, confusion, and distortion. Every day we face with small choices. Do we speak the truth or remain silent? Do we help others or only think of ourselves? Or do we act with honesty or convenience? These choices may look small, but spiritually they are very important. As I said, free will gives meaning to our moral life. Now comes the main three words, Humata, Hukta, Huvarashta, the practical part for using free will well. As you know, that the best practical way to understand free will is through our beautiful Zoroastrian principles, Humata, Hukta, Huvarashta, which we all know about: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. So the free will is not doing whatever we feel like doing. Free will is choosing the right thought, the right word, and the right action. Good thoughts creates the direction of our life. Good words creates harmony and truth in society. Good deeds makes our faith real in action. That is why where philosophy becomes practical. We may speak about free will, but it becomes meaningful only when we use it for good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Coming back to, is free will only an illusion? Here, the science may explain impulses. It does not cancel consciousness. So some people say that free will may be an illusion because science shows that our decisions are influenced by our brain, our upbringing, our environment, and our past experiences. I respect that science helps us to understand many things about human behavior. It shows us how habits, emotions, pressures, and circumstances affect our actions. But influence is not the same as complete control. Even when we are influenced, we can still reflect. We can still use consciousness. We can still ask ourselves, is this right? Is this truthful? Is this helpful? Or is this aligned with Asha? From a spiritual point of view, free will remains meaningful because the human being can reflect, correct, repent, improve, and choose a better path. Another main word which is next is compatibilism. It is, in simple words, condition may shape us, yet response remains ours. So what I will speak is compatibilism is a philosophical word, but we can understand it very simply. We may not. It means that our condition may shape us, but they do not completely remove our ability to choose our response. We may not control everything that happens in life. We may not control every challenge, every pressure, every person, or every situation, but we can still choose how we respond. In leadership, family life, community service, and spiritual life, this is very important. A person may face difficulty, but still choose honesty. A person may face pressure, but still choose integrity. A person may be hurt, but still chooses forgiveness. A person may be tempted, but still choose righteousness. This is where free will becomes a segment for determination. Now, my personal reflection, free will is tested in ordinary daily decision. Every day we are choosing between the truth and silence, between convenience and righteousness, between ego and humility, between self-interest and the larger good. As a person, as a family member, as a community member, and as a morbid, I feel that free will is not just about having options, it is about choosing responsibility before Ahura Mazda. Sometimes the right choice is not the easiest choice. Sometimes the truthful path requires courage. But that is where our spiritual determination is tested. To me, free will becomes meaningful when it is connected with prayer, consciousness, good mind, and service to others. So my conclusion is free will is sacred capacity for righteous determination. Through Yasna 30.2, Zarathustra teaches us to listen, reflect, and choose with awareness. Through Yasna 33.11, we learn that our choices must remain connected with Ahura Mazda's guidance, through good mind, asha, humility, and noble strength. So, free will is both a gift and responsibility. Ahura Mazda gives us the ability to choose, but we must use that choice for truth, righteousness, and good actions. Therefore, Free will is God's gift, but righteous choice is our responsibility. So with this, thank you very much. And thank you very much to the organizers and to all the participants and the entire Burmah community for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on today's subject. I'm truly grateful and humbled to be part of this meaningful webinar. I hope the small reflections on free will, good mind, asha, and righteousness choice gives us some inspiration in our daily life. I will close the words, Ushta Ammai, which means, may the joy and blessings of Asha be with us all. Thank you once again, and I hand it back to the host. Thank you.
Simply superb, simply superb.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very well explained.
Thanks. Thank you.
We need people like you to
Thank
carry
you.
on with our religion and
Brilliant.
build more faith in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mummy. I couldn't have said it better. Zartushti Daina is a very unique faith. It gives it in the prayer that Ervatsai Freddy Gonda prayed at the beginning, gives us the responsibility to take good action to increase the strength of Ahura Mazda, the great energy and wisdom that creates and guides all of creation and existence. And he has explained so beautifully how we may fulfill that prayer. Thank you, Arbat Sahib.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Arvat Sahib Rayomand Pochkhanawala. Arvad Rayomand Pochkhanawala completed his Navar at the Kama Bagh Agyari and serves currently as the COO of the Ahura Project. The Ahura Project is an Ervad-led initiative rooted in strong Zoroastrian values. Ervad Rayomand Pochkhanawala goes on to say and explain, and I quote, as Zoroastrian priests ourselves, we believe this foundation brings a unique level of integrity and authenticity to the work we do. We're a life skills education and behavioral transformation organization led by Zen Ahura. That's Ervad Sahib Zen Ahura. Ervad Pochkhanawala explains that he was ordained as a priest at the age of 14 and continues to stay connected to his roots by serving at the historic Pune Patel Agyari, Pune's oldest fire temple. Alongside this, he's actively involved in Heritage Family potato chip manufacturing business, where he helps automate retail operations and is currently learning the production side. He's also very passionate about fitness. Thank you, Arvat Sahib Pochkhanawala, for being with us today. And I resonate very strongly with Pune because my great-grandfather on my mother's side was the senior Dasturji of Sir J.J. Agyari for about 67 years. So thank you for taking your time to explain this to us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Auntie Karishma, for that beautiful introduction, even though I shared that. And Uncle Meher for having us over here. I'd like to start by asking a very simple question. What is it that all of us are ultimately pursuing? I know different words might come up: success, happiness, peace, fulfillment. But if we look closely, it all points to one thing: living a truly thriving life. Now, the interesting part is that most of us are chasing this, but very few of us understand how this works. Now, what I'm about to share with you all is very simple, but yet very powerful. One that has existed for thousands of years in the Zoroastrian way of life. Humata, Bhukta, and Huvarashta. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. But I would like to translate that a little bit. You can think of it as will, skill, and thrill. Let's start with the first one, Humata, will. Before you go out to achieve anything in life, you must answer these two questions. One, who am I? And two, where do I want to go? Most of us tend to skip this step without understanding themselves. But real progress begins with honesty. I would like to share that, Auntie Karishma, the images that I'd shared with you, it's not allowing me to do it from here. Just bear with me a moment.
So you are co-host. It should have allowed you, but let me
Okay,
just
there we go. Can you all see
set
it
it up.
now?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. But you see, the real progress begins with honesty. Seeing yourself as you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your patterns, and most importantly, are you willing to change? Because it's very clear you cannot go from who you are to where you want to be without being somebody different. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always got. And this is where Humata comes in. Good thoughts. A good mind is not just a positive thinking mind. It's a clear, stable, open mind. A mind that is willing to learn, a mind that is willing to adapt, a mind that is willing to let go of all the old patterns. That openness is what creates the movement. Without it, people can remain stuck even if they have opportunities. Then comes Hukta, the skill aspect. Once you know who you are and where you want to be, skill comes into place. Now, this is very important because all life is communication and all skill is communication, not just with others, but also yourself. A wise monk once told me, in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate for. And negotiation is nothing but communication. And this is where Bhukta, good words, comes. How to speak to others, not just in difficult situations and moments of pressure, but most importantly with yourself. Because your confidence, your decisions, your ability, how you speak to yourself determines all of that. In fact, even modern science today backs this. The way you speak to yourself, it determines your stress levels, your recovery rate, your physical state. So if your internal voice is going to be weak, your execution becomes weak. If your hukta is not strong, then you aren't strong. But if your internal voice is strong, disciplined, you begin to lead a different life. This is the skill aspect. You learn to communicate better, influence, and persuade. Coming to the third, Huvarashta. This is where the thrill comes into place. Now, most of us, we misunderstand thrill. We think thrill comes from outcomes, but actually, thrill comes from action. And this is where Zoroaster said, okay, you might know what to do, you might even have the skill to do it, but unless you act, nothing really changes. Your good deeds come in. Zoroaster is very clear. Just having the good thoughts and the good words isn't going to be enough. Action is essential. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied is power. Let me give you a quick example. I might learn how to drive a car in an open field. But me driving in today's day in Mumbai with all of that traffic is with all that uncertainty, with that movement, with that risk, that is where the real skills come to play. The confidence of mine will develop once I drive over there. My identity as a driver will change over there. And this is where the thrill comes of life. Not from comfort, but from engagement in reality. And that's where free will has been given to us. Zoroaster talks about this so openly, and he gives us these three tools 3,500 years ago. So let's once again bring it together. First, you understand who you are and where you want to go. That's the will, willingness to change. Then comes the skill aspect. You acquire the skills that you need to reach that place. then comes the thrill aspect, to act on it. And over time, these actions become your nature. That's it. Thank you very much, Auntie Karishma, for having me, and Uncle Meher. Thank you. I hope this little...
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes, thank you very much.
Very rare to have two fabulous speakers back to back. And today is going to be very special because, as usual with Bahumata, you'll have four fabulous speeches back to back. For that, I thank Mr. Meher Amal Saji, as I call Baba Meher, for putting all our speakers together, getting the biographies and photographs, and guiding our speakers with the theme and the concepts. Thank you, Baba Meher. We now have a dynamic duo, a daughter and a mother. So I sit here with my mummy Jaru and receive all your love every month on the first Sunday of each month. And I trust today you will share your love with this special mother-daughter duo, Anahita and Persis Driver. Anahita is a high school sophomore in Illinois, United States of America, and very humble. She asked me to cut down her biography, which her mother gave her, by removing almost half of it, which I thankfully have not done. I negotiated with her and kept it. Anahita has held a statewide official position in Illinois youth and government, where she serves in the judiciary program and prepares to argue cases before a mock Supreme Court, and is an active member of her school's competitive speech and golf team. And I negotiated with her, as Ervatsai Pochkanawala explained, based on fact. I said, don't remove your work with the youth and government, because Zarathustra Sahib's message involved justice, good governance, and the power of the youth, which you represent. In her community, Anahita is a highly active member of the Zoroastrian Association of Metropolitan Chicago, where she participates in youth leadership, oral history, community service, and intergenerational storytelling projects. She is the newsletter intern for the Zoroastrian Association of Metropolitan Chicago and also co-leads a project to catalog over 500 books in the library with Fazana Fire's Library. Most recently, Anahita attended and spoke at the United Nations Commission on Status of Women, the CSW 70, as a part of the Federation of Zoroastrian Association of North America Fazana delegation. She is deeply passionate about social issues like gender, justice, civic participation, and youth representation. In a week from now, on May 9th, Anahita will be facilitating the next Fazana Fireside Chat with Ervat Sahib Brigadier Behram Panthaki and Mobidyar Armita Dalal. This is a youth-led event where youth hold meaningful conversations with community members who have had real impact through their work and life. Let's now look at her mummy, Dr. Persis Driver. Dr. Persis Driver is the director for the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence at Dominican University, Chicago, an associate professor of educational psychology, and the author of the book Black and Brown Education in America: Integration Across Schools, Neighborhoods, and Communities. Her research focuses on educational interventions that improve and persistence and career outcomes for STEM students, particularly Black and Brown students, women in STEM, and first-generation students. Focusing on intersectionality of race, place, gender, and culture, Persis investigates power, identity, and coalition building in educational spaces. Importantly, Persis is a religious education teacher curriculum developer and co-chair of the Children and Youth Religion Education Committee at the Zoroastrian Association of Metropolitan Chicago. She also leads the Zoroastrian Educational Leadership and Development Alliance, ZELDA, a youth academy focused on leadership, community service, and mentorship. Persis is the co-chair of Fezana's Religious Education Committee, called REC. With her co-chair Artemis Javanshir, she supports a global coalition of over 100 religious education teachers through an open resource website for age-appropriate lesson plans. She has compiled a guide on developmentally sound teaching practices for students at diverse ages and co-leads the Zoroastrian Intergenerational Oral History ZIOH project that trains and supports middle and high school youth in recording, publishing, and archiving the diverse stories of the global Zoroastrian diaspora and community fireside chat project, where the youth conduct live conversations with members of the community who have made significant global impact through their work and their faith. Over to you, a very powerful mother-daughter duo, Anahita and Persis Driver.
Hello. I think I'll begin. So I just wanted to talk a bit about, and thank you so much for your introduction. But obviously the topic of this conversation is about free will. And free will is a gift. It is a gift that each and every one of us has been given, and one that we all have the obligation to exercise. It is a right that cannot be denied, and one that we exercise every day through our thoughts and actions. But this access to free will is not fully unlimited. It does live within the bounds and constraints of the world around us. Now, I am only 16 years old, but one thing I can bring to this conversation is a youth perspective of this concept. Now, Ahura Mazda gave each of us a vuhumana, a good mind. That is the instrument with which we are able to choose between the paths of Asha and Druj. And that gift of free will is real. However, it is incredibly important to note that as a child, your good mind is still developing. We operate based on our biology, where our hormones and reactive mind sometimes outvote our values. In fact, it doesn't become fully developed until you reach around the age of 25. So yes, we do have free will, but as young people, we are exercising it with a mind that is still being built. But this only serves to make our choices more important, because the choices we make right now are shaping the mind that we will have and use for the rest of our lives. What this goes to say is that free will is not automatically inherent. It is a skill that begins undeveloped and must be constantly practiced and refined as we go through our youth. Even more than this, the circumstances with which we are born into, like our families, our cultures, and our environments, shape us before we are even old enough to question them. And as a child, because of that same reactive mind that those around us know us to have, we are always expected to act within the bounds and the rules that the figures around us, like our parents or our teachers, have set for us. And these rules are good. They help us refine the skill and understand what's right. And this is exactly how our good mind is able to grow. It's not in the absence of guidance, but through this guidance. Another thing that's important to think about is the immense grasp that social media now has over our lives. I mean, social media feeds are designed to predict and dictate our next choice based on our past behavior. They feed into our biases and the thoughts that dictate our choices. And this oftentimes can feel like a restriction of our own free will. We feel like we are no longer choosing what we watch and see. It's being given to us by these algorithms. But here's the thing. The goal was never to be free from all these constraints. The Vahumana doesn't work by eliminating everything around you. It works by giving you the ability to reflect and think within all of it. You cannot always control everything that you see or everything that happens around you or to you, but you can control what you do with it. That space between the impulse that dictates a youth's reactive mind and the choice is where our free will lives. And that space is always yours. It has been given to you, and that always will be yours. So, is free will an illusion? Absolutely not. If it was, it means that no one is responsible for their mistakes. And that leads to a nihilistic sort of belief that nothing we do really matters. But that's not true. Ahura Mazda gave us all the obligation to practice our free will in a way that acts in accordance with Humatta, Hukta, and Vrishta, our good thoughts, good words, good deeds. We are the co-workers with Ahura Mazda, and it is our duty to protect the world around us and exercise this free will and do what is right. Our free will is a skill that is constantly being developed and refined. We get the choice on whether we follow the paths of Druj or Asha. And how we follow that path, that is up to us and the power of our developing Vahumana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anahita. We move on now to Persis Driver. Over to you, Persis.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Karishma, and thank you, Anahita, for leading us through this conversation as well. I'll build a little on what Anahita has talked about because in my own professional and personal life, I have the privilege to work with young minds every day. And so I bring this insight as an educator and a parent to this very conversation today. Today's teenagers, like you just heard, are natural philosophers. They question everything. They roll their eyes at authority, and yet they care deeply about justice and the planet. And sometimes beneath the sarcasm and existential dread, though, there is always raw brilliance, courage, and empathy. Yet many young people constantly question, am I truly free? Do my choices truly matter? And it doesn't help that they often get mixed messages. Neuroscientists debate whether the brain decides before the conscious mind can even catch up. So are our choices really ours? Philosophers have argued about determinism, that our history, our culture, our environment shapes our choices until we barely even recognize them. Psychologists, they map the architecture of the unconscious. So how do we, as parents, as educators, as mentors, cut through all of this noise? This is where our Zarathustra's Gathas offer a guide because they don't frame the concept of free will as just permission or even just responsibility. It's more than that. It's a cosmic function. And as an educator and a parent, I think it really serves us well to understand this model. So like we heard before from so many of our wonderful speakers today, the Gatha, the Yasna 30.2, right, is a really important part in this process. If we hear it correctly, we understand that it really encapsulates an entire philosophy of education. In this verse, Zarathustra asks every man and woman to think for themselves with a clear, reflective mind and to choose to follow the path of Asha. And he doesn't command or threaten or compel, he invites people into this conversation. And this is a voice of a teacher. Later on, he also does not claim to know it all. He models for us what Vahumana or the good mind looks like. It's humble, it's open, it's asking, it's learning. He is the student in order to show us how to be human. And that brings us to this profound insight. Free will in the Gaithic vision is not randomness or chaos. It is disciplined, it is informed, it is conscious exercise of our good mind, Vahumana, in the service of Asha, truth or order. As a developmental psychologist, I often use my understanding of how individuals learn and grow to make sense of this. So, in the field of psychology, Erickson, a psychologist, proposed that in our very early stages of life, these stages are built on the question of trust. As parents and educators, we are the environment in which a child's first choices are nurtured or stunted. And even an infant can decipher between real, authentic warmth and love versus neglect and deception. Another psychologist, Piaget, demonstrated that in adolescence, individuals develop formal logic or the capacity to imagine possibilities that don't yet exist, to reason about the future. Now, this is a stage of thrill for many teenagers. The exhilarating, terrifying discovery that I am the author of my own story, that my choices are truly mine. And here is where the parent-educator relationship becomes critical. The adolescent who's given freedom without Asha, without the compass of truth and order, experiences the thrill of choice as chaos. The mentor's role then is to be present, not controlling, to offer wisdom of Vahumana without forcing it. And then finally comes the work of some psychologists who define free will not as some mysterious metaphysical power, but as a cognitive skill, something that we develop, we practice, very much like what Anahita just mentioned. Our Zoroastrian tradition predates any of these theories and offers something that an algorithm cannot. It offers a framework for choosing what has been tested by civilizations. Humatta hukta huvershta. It's not just a slogan, it's a developmental sequence. You cannot produce good deeds from a mind that has not been cultivated in good thought. You cannot speak good words that are not rooted in truth. The sequence matters. And the mentor's task is to embody this visibly, honestly, and imperfectly in front of the young people in their care. Of course, Zarathustra considered all of us to be intelligent enough to distinguish between this right and wrong. But the Gaithic version of free will moves beyond this morality. Human choice is the mechanism through which the entire universe moves towards Frashakarati. Every single conscious, righteous choice that we make is a stitch in the cosmic tapestry. And so our free will is not just about us, it's about the entire universe. And this is a very powerful message that as educators, we need to give our youth, because in it lies the sense of hope or empowerment and purpose, even during the darkest of their times. In Zoroastrianism, the relationship between God and man is radically different from many other worldviews. The divine is not just an external force that judges or saves or punishes, but is a loving guide helping us evolve and realize the divine within us. The implication for free will here is enormous. Ahura Mazda then is omniscient, but not omnipotent. He sees everything, but he does not override human choices. Why? Because to override choice would be to destroy the very thing that makes our choices human. So I'll close with Yasna 44, thought from Yasna 44, which sometimes scholars call the philosopher's Gatha. right? In this gatha, in this verse, what really stands out is that Zarathustra goes on to ask several questions about cosmology, ethics, laws of consequences, 20 questions directed at Ahura Mazda, a testament to being an ultimate teacher. Right? Zarathustra is teaching not through proclamation, but through inquiry. And this is the Socratic method of teaching that has been followed for centuries, way before Socrates himself. And it carries a message for every teacher and parent. The question we ask our young people matters much more than the answers that we give them, perhaps even more. When we sit and we ask a teenager, not tell them, ask them what choices did they make? Why did they make them? What does the best version of themselves say about this? We are doing something ancient. We are activating the Vahumana. We are creating conditions in which a young person discovers that what they already have within them, the capacity to discern Asha from Dhruj. Theology, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, they can't solve the problem of free will in a world that seems bent on controlling every thought, policing every word, and forcing every behavior. Free will is a capacity that needs to be cultivated in relationship, in community, in the presence of mentors who have not given up on their own cultivation. So I end by reminding myself that my own mentors have taught me this. My parents, my grandparents, who are educators themselves, my role models within the community who have led with compassion, my friends and mentors whose work is grounded in equity and human rights, have shown me what courage looks like when it is rooted in conscience. Each of them, in their own way, answered the oldest question in our tradition, not with words, but with their own lives and actions, proving that free will is the sacred pause between what happens to us and what we do. It is not a grand metaphysical declaration. It is practiced, it is cultivated, it is earned capacity. It is a skill. And like all skills, it requires a teacher, a guide, and a mentor. Thank you for listening, and thank you for allowing me to share this view with everyone.
Thank you very much, Persis. We've now listened to 4 very valuable shares of thought. And let's take our questions. But before we start with the questions, we will have 2 sections at the end today. One is questions, specific questions, based on the speaker's thoughts to the speaker. Other speakers may then add in. And then we will move on to the Bahuman sharing section, where you, as our contributors, all the audience, may share your thoughts on the theme. But before we do that, let's focus on one word each from the 2 verses. So Yasna 30.2 ends with Baudanto Paiti. So Paramaze Yongo in each or before each great circumstance. And then it talks of Baudanto. Bauda is what one is focusing on when one offers the sandalwood to the fire in the litany to the fire in the Zartushti Daina. And Bauda is that sum total of all an individual's thoughts, of the consciousness, the superconsciousness, and everything that one has created. That data chip that then one takes when one leaves this earth. So Bauda is a very important concept, and it is almost like a cloud that one can tap into, because one can also tap into the sum total of the Bauda that exists according to our text, not just one's own Bauda. So Baudanto Paiti. And the second word I'd like you to focus upon as you ask your questions and participate in the discussion is in Yasna 33:11, the last line has the word Adai. This relates free will, or really responsibility and choices, to the outcome that comes for each thing we think, speak, or do. Adai. To each one, it will come in accordance to what one does. So these are very important concepts. So what we do does not disappear. It is part of our Bodha. So with that, let's take our first question. Just raise your hand and unmute yourself, please. Professor Farooq Mistry, you've got a question in the chat. Would you like to read it out? And we can address each of the speakers if you like. You do need to unmute, please.
Yeah. So, Karishma, I'd like you to read it out and then coordinate the discussion.
Okay. Yes, Professor Mehran Seferi will come to you next. So Farooq says, Zoroastrianism offers robust moral freedom, but not absolute metaphysical freedom. The free in free will, in my opinion, is limited by 6 things. A predetermined cosmic victory of good, a fixed moral order, Asha, not Asha, but Asha, a pre-existing dualistic conflict, divine omniscience, an unalterable system of judgment, the requirement that even prophets must choose within these boundaries. Our choices matter enormously, but they matter within a universe whose ultimate structure and final outcome are already set, says Farooq Mistry as his question. He asks, your thoughts? So I think what we will do is ask each of our speakers this question, and then at the end, when we go to our Bahuman sharing section, each of our participants is welcome to share their 2-minute share on this very valuable question. So, speakers, your thoughts in any order you like? Let's start with Ervatsai Freddy Gonda.
All right, sorry. I was on mute. So just to, from my particular presentation which I made, my concluding thoughts are always that, to me, as an Arvid, Zarathustra message is very clear. Free
Who's on
will,
the right?
as we said,
Farooq.
Can you hear me?
Oh, he's got a cat today.
He's improving. Oh.
All right, can I start? Yeah, so the free will is not fragment of imagination, but a divine gift from Ahura Mazda. That's what various other speakers have also defined it. Now, I may not be understanding about the cosmic victory or moral order or whatever the things which you have written down in your question. But the choices, of course, matters enormously. And it gives us, every human being, dignity and responsibility to listen carefully, think clearly, and choose wisely. In that sense, free will becomes a segment for determination because it allows us to rise above impulse, fear, and confusion and live through Humata, Hukta, and Huvarishta in the light of Asha. This is what I can just do it, other than rest of the speakers can follow.
Thank you, Ervatsai Freddy Gonda. Ervatsai Brahmand.
Yes. That is quite a question by Uncle Farooq. But as Edward Freddy said, free will is determined. You do have the choice. Zoroaster made it very clear. As I broke it down in the will, skill, and thrill aspect, you do have the choice. You have the choice of thinking good thoughts. You have the choice of saying that and then putting that to action. And when it comes to the cosmic energy part of it, I'm not the best person to answer that. But the rest is very clear. Zoroaster has given us a manual to go through, and it's very clear that free will is given to us, and it is our choice how we want to use it.
Okay, we'll come back to some things that you've said because we'll give our questioner the opportunity for pushback and further questions because we want to help each of our speakers also come to a
Definitely.
point where the real thought inside their mind that has come from all the teaching they have received and their own inner wisdom, because we say asno surokerati and gosho surokerati. So we have an innate wisdom and what we have heard. So to bring that out from our speakers, we will give our questioner time for pushback and further questions.
Definitely.
Persis, and then Anahita.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is it's a very fundamental question, right? And we have to acknowledge that when we're talking about free will and choices, the restraints exist. And in fact, to pretend like they don't isn't just idealism, it's actually quite cruel for many individuals who have to function and exist within those constraints. But I think that when we talk about free will and when we talk about choices, the question is less about the constraints and more about what is it that we as humans are willing to do within these constraints. What are we able to do within these constraints? And I think that's where it becomes really interesting, because that's where we are talking about now this idea of Vahumana, or the idea of the dominion, and moving towards this idea of frashakarati, this perfection, which can be seen as a constraint, like Dr. Mistry was saying as well. But I think within this, the power of agency human agency is something that is really, really critical and really, really important. Because in fact, it is the kind of thinking, the fatalistic thinking, that because we exist in these restrictions, we might be helpless, is exactly what the kind of thinking that I think we're trying to break, especially with our young folks. So when we think about practical problems, like let's take environmentalism, environmental conservation, how many times have we heard young people say, what's the point of me doing something small, because in the large scheme of things, it won't make any difference. And I think it really is important that we help them understand the power of their agency, which can only come through the exercise of free will. It's not easy. Nobody said this was going to be easy, but I think it is important to acknowledge and then to work with them to think about solutions within those restraints.
Thank you, Anahita. Sorry, Persis, sorry. Anahita, would you like to add anything further?
Yes, I think kind of really going off of what my mom just said, I do agree that our free will is limited. There are always going to be restrictions, whether physically or spiritually, whatever it is. But a predetermined cosmic victory, this concept of a moral order, it doesn't erase your ability to have choices. It, in fact, makes them even more important because it is your job to overcome these restrictions and make your way to Frashakarati and make your way to this good that you have been set to try and do. And so this system of judgment and this moral order that is already set, it simply provides the bounds for which you are able to exercise your free will. However, this free will, this ability is still yours to exercise, and that just makes it even more important to exercise it.
Okay,
Today,
very
World Laughter
interesting.
Day.
Thank you, Mummy. Very interesting. Let me answer, if I may, Farooq, in about 30 seconds, what Zarathustra Sahib says is an answer, as I see it, this is an answer to Farooq's question. It was in a talk I gave for the North American Morbid Council on Cause and Effect. Yasna 31 verse 11 balances three things. One's desire, vasau, which will guide one's choices and will. Purpose, dayate, and one's belief and conviction, varing. Because this verse says, Mazda, at the beginning, Purvim, designed creation, all of Gethao, and the associated daina, the laws that govern it. and wisdom, kratum. So look how beautifully the message of Zarathustra answers these sorts of questions. And then through the mind, twa mananga kratyascha hyat, and he goes on to say through the mind, but it's twa, through your, that means the Aura Mazda that exists within each one as the Fravashi to guide us through that mind, gives the power to take action and gave words of guidance to choose and how to choose with conviction in accordance with purpose and one's desire. So it's not only one's desire. That's 31 verse 11. Farooq, any pushback, any further questions? Okay, now we go on to Professor Mehran Seferi.
Thank you so much, all the speakers and organizers, for a wonderful webinar. My question is kind of supplement to Farouk's. We think of the world as a very simple and deterministic world, that we have free will, we have choices and consequences. But it's not really that simple. I see from science that we have another thing called random effect, and some call it luck, some call it chance. I might choose an action and end up with 2 + 2, 4, and you might end up with 2 + 2, 6. Now, I don't know if Zoroastrianism, we believe in such thing as random effects, as luck, as chance, or not. Thank you.
Brilliant question. Would anybody like to answer this? Okay, I'll take a first stab till one of our speakers would like to answer it. So in verse 30.3, which follows the verse that 30.2, which our Ervat Sahib Gonda recited and explained for us so well. In the very next verse, Zarathustra Sahib gives us the purpose. He says, do the above, that is, strauta, listen, etc. And as you do narem kakaya tanuye, each one deciding for oneself, do so to put forth spenta mainu. This is what 30.3 says. Now, the answer to your question is, what is the other one? So in the Gathas, there are two references to the other one. First, as the other one, opposed to spenta mainu. Angra mainu, which is called in the later text, but it's not mentioned in the Gathas. In the Gathas, we have Angra manyate and Angro something else. Akomana, sorry, Angra manyate and Akomana. We don't have Angra mainu specially mentioned in the Gathas. So where has this other one come from? So the Zarathustri worldview is this, well explained by scholars like Ervat Sahib Ramya Karanjia, that Ahura Mazda is the creator of all that is good. So Yasna 47 verse 4 says, Spenta Mainu has given all. Ahura Mazda is the giver of all, and it says, addresses that as Spenta Mainu. So Ahura Mazda has created all that is good. And as Ramyar Sahib explains, that which is not good has come as a result of the four laws of polarity. Does that make sense? So the laws of physics are, as you explained yourself in your question, entrenched within the Zarathustri Daina. That Ahura Mazda, that great creator, that energy, that wisdom, that creative force, has created all that is good. Anything else has come by the laws of nature, including all that is bad, evil. Hence, by logic, the role of the human being is in the Yatahu Vairya Priya explained, to take good action to increase the strength of Ahura Mazda. What was the brains of Asho Zarathustra, the prophet, thousands of years ago? Your pushback. And then if any of the other speakers has anything to say. No? Okay. Any other speakers want to add to this concept?
I could add, I could extend a little bit of what
Yes.
you were just saying, Karishma, because I think this question of luck or chance, again, even in psychology, is a really important question, right? You could do everything, but then what does luck and chance have to do with it? But I think if you're comparing it to our Gaelic tradition, like you were just talking about, I think we're talking about two slightly different things, because when we think about luck and chance the way we do generally, our focus is on outcomes, whereas when we're talking about it through the perspective of our gathas, we're really more interested in people's future orientation. How are you going to exercise that free will in order to move along the path of Asha through the good thoughts, good words, good deeds? All of those things becomes more important. So I think, at least from my understanding, that's what we are really focusing on, is that future orientation. So that's how I see it as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Persis. So in answer to that, bringing the question and the answer that Persis gave together, Yasna 48 verse 4, the last line in Sahib Kanga's translation says, when you align your willpower and your deterministic, he calls it fealty, Zarathustra Sahib says, the outcome will follow. So cause and effect is in the Gathas. Yasna 33 verse 11 that Erva Sahib Gonda said, the last line had the word adai, outcome will come. But yes, the concept of entropy, luck and chance play a role. That is the role of the human being, to overcome and take all the good action we can. So not so much luck and chance, but things happen. Entropy does strike. It strikes your cupboard if you don't arrange it well enough. Why should it not strike my life? Randomness, as physics calls it. Robert Vinchalete, you had your hand up first, but I'll come to you, but the reason I'll go to Ervat Zen Ahura is because I think his response is to the question at hand. If I'm wrong, Ervat Zen Ahura, then we'll wait and come back to you later.
Yes, if it's my turn now, just very briefly, in the 1920s, Schrodinger and Heisenberg physically proved that that electron actions, as they apply in the brains of sentient creatures, are not deterministic. They only follow laws of probability. This is where the laws of physics come to a dead end, and the rest is outside of the laws of physics, and that is a direct proof of free will. And several people who studied quantum mechanics have encountered this, and that's revolutionary because nobody could prove there was such a thing as free will as a physical reality before. But now that we have this, that implies everything that it should imply about the dignity of all sentient creatures. And it also implies that we don't have a right to kill innocent animals for food or leather. And it implies all the moral requirements that this faith demands. So
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you for
leave that
sharing your
now.
thoughts. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Ervat Sahib
Sure.
Zen Ahura, over to you.
Thank you very much. What a fantastic question posed by Uncle Farouk. It's pretty much stumped everybody. But I just wanted to do a very quick thing because I heard all the speakers say something, and I'm very curious about this myself and what they think. Can I just do a very quick poll with all the speakers? How many of you believe that Zoroaster came with instructions? Of course, through Ahura Mazda, but he came with instructions. Just a hand like this would do.
I'm sorry, you wanted an answer from our speakers, so we need to also ask them the question and give them the right to give you their reasons for that. And then come back to your second question. One moment.
Yes, please.
Thank you. If any of you has a reason for believing this from the text or from your own teachings you have, I'd appreciate it first. because what this program is about appreciating Zarathustra Sahib's guidance. Yes, Elwood Sahib Freddy Gonda. Please unmute first.
Yeah, it's a good question. And always, Zarathustra always feels that whatever the clear messages he gets is a divine gift from Ahura Mazda. It's not even in this particular the yasnas which we have given you the explanation, but right from all the gathas, if you go in translation, where the actual dialogues are there between Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra. So with that particular concept, always Zarathustra receives the messages from Ahura Mazda. In whatever the way, and of course, whatever the queries that somebody said just now that he has asked in certain question, yasna, that he has asked various queries for that, like 20 queries and all, right? I think Karishma said that. So yeah, so it is an ongoing thing between Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra. And of course, in the present world scenario, also to take into consideration where there are so much of unrest, distraction, and moral confusion at that point of time, there was between good thoughts and evil thoughts. The question of free will become very important at that point of time. So I agree with what you said just now, that yes, Ahura Mazda sends the not even messages, but sends the teachings to Zarathustra, and Zarathustra implies this teaching to the full community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ervad Rahman Pochkhanawala, I think you raised your hand too to say you agree and you believe.
Yes, I did agree. The Humata, Hupta, and Huvarashta is the manual that Zoroaster has provided us with. So I do agree that there was a manual given to us.
Versus, and then Anahita.
I don't think I agree that there is a set of instructions, mainly because I know that this idea of a grand revelation does exist in many religions as well. But in when I think about the Gathas, and obviously I'm not a scholar or as learned in them, but what I have understood about them is that there is a lot more questioning that happens in the Gathas when Zarathustra talks about his relationship with Ahura Mazda. It's through the lens of inquiry, through the lens of reflection, through the lens of constant trying to make sense of what is happening. And even when he does talk about getting something, he talks about getting the Vahumana. And what is the Vahumana? It isn't just a scientific mind or a rational mind or a logical mind. It is a mind that is constantly thinking and questioning and reasoning and challenging and evolving. And so I don't see it. Of course, we can have different perspectives, but I don't see it as Zarathustra having a prescriptive list of instructions, but instead the willingness and the ability to think and reflect and challenge and change their minds as environment evolves as well.
Thank you, Persis. Anahita, would you like to give your thoughts as Ervad Zen has asked the question?
Yeah, I think I also agree that there are not a direct set of instructions on what we need to do and what we must think and do and say, but there is a basic guideline along which we are supposed to conduct how we think, say, do. We have this idea of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. And those are the basic guidelines that he has given us on how we should conduct ourselves. But there is not a specific set of instructions that tells us exactly how we should do that. It is up to us and our free will to decide how we conduct ourselves along that path.
Thank you, Anahita. Your second question, Ervat Sahib Zain Ahura.
I echo what Auntie Persis and Anahita have said about it not being necessary.
Did you have a second question rather than your thoughts?
Yes.
We'll come to
Yes.
individual speakers' thoughts at the end.
Absolutely. Since some of them agreed that there were specific sets of instructions, do they also believe that since he has provided us with instructions and guidelines, that there is by default free will because Zoroaster provided us?
Very lovely question. Would our speakers like to address that? So the speakers who believe that there is a guidance, a set of guidelines, where does free will come into?
It's
The
not a
existing set
set
of
of guidelines. Sorry about that, but it's not a set of guidelines or instructions as Persis has said. But what I said it when I clearly stated that the messages between Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra, where the actual dialogues has happened in Gathas. So that point of view, we cannot call it as an instructions, but it is that actually whatever the questions which have in relation to Humata, Hukta, and Uvarashta. At that point of time, the actual messages which has been exchanged between Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra, that has been related and that has been explained in Gathas as well as in Yajashne also, we call it Yajashne, but Yasna 30.2 and 33.11, which we have described it today. Basically, that is the deepest meaning which I have done the research for today, and that is what it shows that Zarathustra message is very clear that free will is not fragment of imagination, but a divine gift from Ahura Mazda. So that is what I can clearly conclude with that yes, this is what the message or divine gift which has come from Ahura Mazda to Zarathustra to spread amongst us.
Thank you. Which of the other speakers said yes, there was a guideline? I think Ervat Sahib Pochkhanawala.
Yes,
it you?
I did.
Would you like to answer the second question, please?
I feel the guideline is not like a guideline as such. It's more like a manual. When you get a microwave, there are a set of instructions. When you buy toys, there are a set of instructions. This is like a manual for life. If you'd like to follow them, you would lead a better, happier, more successful, more thriving life. It is open for you to choose whether to do it or not do it. But if you do, I feel that it would reach your thriving life sooner and faster than you trying different ways. Learning from his experiences, we could achieve that faster.
Okay. So, Persis has shared her thoughts. Anahita has shared her thoughts, and you both have answered the second question. I suppose it's my duty to answer Ervat Sahib Zain Ahura's question from the text. So, in the Visparad, a text that some of you may not be very familiar with, but if you address yourselves to the Avastha course from the University of Mumbai that is run by Ervat Sahibs, very respected Ervat Sahibs, you will see that the Visparad answers this question very directly, because the Visparad has two words in one of its lines, in one of its verses, that uses the word Shotana in direct apposition or next to the word Veredai. So choice in the Zartushti Daina is the word Var. Varing is purpose and choice. But if you remember, we use the word Yatahu Vairyo. We say Vairya. So we are choosing the Ahu along with the Ratu, or you can say the Ratu and the Ahu are chosen or recognized. Var is a combination of all these, because of the good mind and good action taken in line with Ahura Mazda. But has a purpose at the end in the Yatahu Vairya prayer. It says, in order to become the Vastarim, the caretaker, the person who cares for all. This includes all of creation. whether fire, water, air, plants, and animals. But the Visparad puts this into a beautiful context. It says, awaken yourself. So we often talk about Garotman as a place of song. But Gar, as in the Atashnyas, we say the word Jagaurum, is a reduplicated word of the word Gar, which means to awaken. So the Visparad says, Masdias knees, awaken and hold out your hands with your intelligence and your feet in readiness to carry out Shyotananam, which is lawful, meritorious deeds. But it says, Verezai, which means in accordance to the sacred order. And then it says, don't do what is unlawful. So the Visparad answers this, but Persis also alluded to the correct answer to this from Zarathustra Sahib's Gathas, because in Yasna 44 it actually tells us, help me treat your knowledge as a friend giving me a friend, actually friend to my ones, Mavaite, a friend to a friend, Auramazda talks, to teach Asha. At the end it says, through the messenger of Sarosh, let the good mind come to us. So at every stage, as Ervat Sahib Gonda and Ervat Sahib Pochkhanawala and Persis and Anahita have described in together, their knowledge has brought out the message of Zarathustra Sahib. I think that gives you the answer, Ervat Sahib Zen, to your question. And Mehran to your question and Farooq to his question. So yes, in 21st century, you'll have questions that Zarathustra Sahib has answered 8,500 odd years ago. If anyone else has a question, we'll take it. Otherwise, we'll conclude with the Vahuman sharing section and a Ham Bandagi from Ervat Sahib Pochkhanawala. Anyone has any special thoughts? Additions? No? All right. Let's conclude with Ervat Sahib Freddy Gonda, because there is another prayer session from the North American Mobile Council, which I urge you all to attend now. Freddy Sahib, over to you. Sorry, Rayaman Sahib, over.
Rayaman, right? Yes.
Let us all come together and pray two yathas and one Hashem. Yatha ahum veryo, atha ratush, shadachit, hatha, Wangayush, Zdao Maningo, Shotinanam, Gayush Mastai, Shatrincha, Ahurai, Ayim, Darigupyo, Dadat Vastarem, Yatha Ahum Verio, Atharatush, Ashadachi, Hacho, Wangayush, Zdao Maningo, Shotinanam, Angeush Mazdai, Shatrim Cha, Ahurai, Ayim, Darigupyo, Dadat Vastarem, Ashem Vahu, Vaisem Masti, Ustai, Ashem, Yenge Hatam, At Yasni, Baiti Vangho, Mazda Veta, Hacho, Yangamcho, Dascho, Dauscho, Yesamaide.
Thank you all very much for joining today's session.
What bad.
Let us stop the recording, and then if you want to stay on, you can, but I suggest you attend the North American Mobile Council session for prayers. And I'll put the link into the chat in a moment.